What is your name?
Rebecca Radomski.
Where are you from?
Originally St. Clair Shores, Michigan, but I live in Berkeley, Michigan now.
How old were you on September 11th, 2001?
Oh boy. 30? 31? 31.
Where were you when the 9/11 attacks happened?
I was at my house on Buckingham Avenue in Berkeley, Michigan, and it was about 9 o'clock in the morning, and I was a stay-at-home mom at the time, and my son Gret was only 8 months old, and I got up with him like any other morning and turned on the television, and that's when I heard what was going on, that planes had hit the first tower, a plane had hit the first tower, and while I was standing there listening to the report, no one really knew what had happened other than a plane had hit it, and they were showing live coverage of the tower burning. A second plane hit the second tower right live while I was watching it.
Yeah. Before the attacks, did you ever visit the World Trade Center or the Pentagon? And what do you remember if you have?
I had been to New York City before the attacks, and I had been down in that area, but I had never gone into that building. The Pentagon, no, I had never been to Washington, D.C. Well, I take that back. I had been to Washington, D.C., but I had never visited the Pentagon.
What was your most vivid memory of the day?
I guess watching the images on TV and holding my baby in my arms and recognizing that this is happening, that it, as the details came out, that this was a terrorist attack on America, and kind of having to come to grips with the fact that you woke up that morning feeling safe, and as the day wore on, feeling not really understanding what this meant for what would change in my lifetime and my son's lifetime.
What was the situation with your husband?
He was at work when it happened, so I called him a bunch of times throughout as we got details. And just kind of, I think most people reached out to their families and checked on their safety and just needed to get comfort from each other because it was scary.
Were you personally connected to anyone in the towers, the Pentagon, or planes?
I was not, but I do know people who had lost people in those places through connections, but not me personally, no.
And after the event, did you go to the World Trade Center site after the attacks?
I have been there, yes, since then.
What do you remember about it?
How emotional it is and how many lives it impacted. It's just such a monument that they've built there is it's just very touching, and because it's so real, and how many people were affected by this.
What did you think of the government's reaction to the attacks?
I mean, at the time, I felt like it was, they did the right thing as far as I was concerned. I mean, nobody likes war, nobody likes lives lost, but at the same time, you can't let terrorists come in and think that they can do horrific things to your country and get away with it. So I think they took the right steps.
Do you think do you believe the government should be able to listen to like phone calls and read private emails in order to fight terrorism?
I mean, I think there's a fine line between Big Brother or the government invading your privacy, but at the same time, if there's reason to suspect, I think that,
So you're saying like with a warrant?
With good reason. I don't think anybody anywhere should be listened to, but if there's some indication that you're involved in this, then I think that gives them permission to see if that's accurate or not.
Do you believe the nation is safer today as a result of the changes?
Well, it's a different world, that's for sure. Are we safer? I don't know. I think there's more in place than there was. Yet, I mean, terrorists continue to prove if they want to do it bad enough, they're gonna, I don't like the idea of living in fear, so I want to believe that we're safe. And, in the end, bad things happen in the world, and changes are made because of it, and you have to move on.
Do you believe the nation, or do you think terrorism can be defeated?
I would like to say yes. I think it can be put in its place, and if people work together, they can keep it to a minimum, but I don't know if it'll ever be defeated.
Has 9/11 changed you?
I think so. I mean, I think it made it more real that this could happen in your lifetime, my lifetime, and like I said, I think, in that moment, in those moments to follow, that people felt the impact of it, and I don't know if, I think you stay changed, but the farther you get away from that being an everyday occurrence to you, it's hard to think that it's really changed your entire life. You're reminded of it at times, and it was a very scary couple of days, but I think that reminding ourselves that the freedoms that we have that we take for granted is definitely there. After something like that, you realize that other countries don't believe like we do, and act like we do, and then they sometimes want to come in and remind us of that. I don't know, that's a hard question to answer.
And why do you think it is important for students to learn about September 11th?
Because it's happened, it's history, it's fact, it's ongoing, that a lot of countries and peoples in the world we live in don't believe the same belief system that we do in America, and that's how it is. So it's important to learn from what can happen and what did happen, and
Learn from our mistakes.
well, I don't know if it was a mistake per
As
se,
in
but
security reasons.
yeah, but it's something that I think we just assumed as a country that we were big enough and strong enough that this just wouldn't happen here, and unfortunately we saw that it did, and we had to learn from that. At the same time, we still are Americans and believe in freedom, so you can't change everything, but you can just kind of do it in a way that you're more watchful now, I think.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for your time, Mrs. Radomski.
Thank you, Mr. Radomski.